Well, we are recording. I hope the world can see us at this point. We'll know very soon if there's nobody in the chat. But let's do this thing. All right. Okay. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you here joining us from, wherever you are. I want to invite you all to pull up this video on your iPad, while you're washing dishes. That's because as a 3, I want you to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, make your spouse happy, or put it up on your TV while you kick back on the couch by the fireplace. Like, it is going to be a fun hour. And just so you know, we are right smack in the middle of the Enneagram virtual summit called the EnneaSummit Midlife and Beyond. Like, it's the place you want to be to get a personalized roadmap for midlife and beyond. So whether you're 35 or 65 or 85, whether you're just sensing something needs to change or you're deep in midlife questions, then I just want you to know that you're in the right place. This week has been amazing. We've had people tuning in from places like Tennessee, Texas, California, Canada, the UK, Ireland. Thanks to Leslie, she's bringing people from Ireland, Australia, Sweden, Switzerland, and a lot of other cool places that I wish I was at right now instead of being surrounded by cornfields in Nebraska. Okay. But man, in addition to having 20 main speakers like Suzanne Stabile and Russ Hudson, we also have 37 people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s on 9 different type panels, like sharing raw, honest wisdom about what second half should look like through the lens of your type. So if you're just hearing about the EnneaSummit right now on October 23rd, it's not too late. You can still register to watch today's sessions and tomorrow's sessions for free. So head over to EnneaSummit or see the link in the show notes to go register and start watching. But after this Q&A, of course. Now, I'm super excited to share that we have a surprise guest appearance tonight. We have Clare Loughrige and Leslie Hershberger joining us, and they are going to be answering your questions live tonight. This is the first time we've ever tried to do this, so bear with us if there's any tech difficulties, but I think it's really cool to be able to answer your questions on the fly. So you could start leaving your questions right now in the chat, actually, for Clare and Leslie. You may have to log in with the Google or YouTube account to be able to do that first, just FYI. But start dropping those questions now so that I can see them. And as you do, let me quickly introduce our wonderful guests. We have the Reverend Clare Loughrige. She's a spiritual director, pastor, and author of 3 books on the Enneagram. She developed an International Enneagram Association accredited training program that certifies students in the Enneagram Harmony model. Clare is also the founder and principal of Crossroads Soul Resources School of Spiritual Direction, which integrates a Trinitarian, trauma-informed Enneagram Harmony triad approach to training spiritual directors. Clare did a main session today on the summit called The Enneagram and the Third Act of Life, which, by the way, includes a 10-minute mortality meditation that you cannot miss. It will bring you to tears. And then Clare is a family woman, married to her husband, Scott. She's a grandma, just enjoying life right now. Clare, how are you feeling right now?
I'm doing so much better. I've got still a little bit of the laryngitis, but we're gonna call it my nightclub voice.
Amazing. Well, I'm so thankful for you creating some space to be with us tonight, even though you have laryngitis. Oh, okay.
Hopefully it won't be too painful for you to listen to, right?
Well, it does sound kind of nightclubby though, Clare. It does sound
it does. I like the rasp. We also have another guest, as you can see, Leslie Hershberger. She is a certified Enneagram master teacher. She's a retreat leader, facilitator, and spiritual guide with over 20 years of experience integrating the Enneagram, contemplative practice, somatic work, 3-center awareness, and integral theory. She specializes in helping individuals navigate life's thresholds, which are moments of transition that invite deeper self-awareness and transformation. She actually holds thresholds groups and retreats, which I'd love for her to talk about more later. But Leslie, how are you feeling tonight?
Oh, I'm really glad to be here. I was thrilled to be invited. And it's so funny Tyler, because, when I heard you were doing this, I couldn't believe this because I was doing corporate work for a while, and I left to do this and to really work with people in the second half, because I can't tell you how often people at work would kind of talk to me on the QT. They would want to have these conversations. They didn't want to have them at work. and so to go back to my first love of psycho-spiritual integration of the Enneagram is where my heart is, and to be teaching that and really working with people at this time of life. I'm happy and I'm grateful you're doing this summit. I just couldn't believe it was happening. It's like the timing was great.
Well, this is the 7th summit now, and I've done, spiritual formation, mental health, all these different topics, and it's pretty easy to go out and find speakers. But when I was looking for speakers for this particular topic on midlife, I had a hard time. I really had to look far and wide, because there's still not a lot of teaching out there or schools out there on midlife and helping people through thresholds and life transitions. And so that's why I'm super excited to have you two on tonight, because I can't wait to push people to your work, because you are helping people in midlife. And so thank you again for being here.
Well, it's a youth obsessed culture, and I just want to appreciate you for doing this. When I started the Thresholds group, I told a friend I was going to start working with people in the second half of life, and she said, "Don't call it that. Nobody will come." And, we did it, and a lot of people came. And I think that you doing this, just look how many came. This is something that's very alive for people.
It is, especially for, I think, 30 somethings and 40 somethings like myself. This is like the topic that we didn't know we needed, because like I said, we'll hit a midlife crisis if we don't know that there will be bumps on the road. And a lot of the things we experience are going to be normal. But if we don't know that they're normal and don't talk to anybody that's been through it, and are listening to their wisdom and listening and allowing them to be a guide, then we are going to go through a crisis. So this is so important. And we already have 82 people that have jumped in who are wanting to hear from you guys. So I'm going to let you guys talk. But I want to start out with this question before we get into some listener questions. And I've heard this before, and the question goes like this. Like, is it really true that the best is yet to come? Okay. And how do I move from cynicism and fear about aging and moving to genuine hope and excitement about what's ahead? So how would you guys answer that question?
Claire, I'll let you go.
Well, I'm happy to hear you first also, Leslie. Person, I heard your thresholds conversation yesterday, and I have to say it was brilliant. And I was taking notes while I couldn't talk. And now that I can talk again, I may be talking to you about it. So anyway, I want to say that I love the question about the best is yet to come, because, of course, we sang this a little bit before we got on, right? The best is yet to come. Okay. And so there is this youth obsessed culture. And there is this fear, if you haven't had good mortality mentors, if you haven't had the kind of people who've lived through the passages of time that you have been able to have conversation with and understand that it's not about the second half being something that, it's more or it's more achievements, but it's about depth. It's about a freedom that you couldn't have imagined before. That when you, maybe like me as a Ennea style 3 in my 30s, it was about achievement, and it was about grind. It was about getting it done. It was about what can I do to move the ball forward. And so when you start to realize, when you hit, as I did, that burnout phase at 40 with a diagnosis, and then realizing, okay, so it's not about proving myself here. It's about belonging to myself. And that out of that kind of space, there might be a loosening of cynicism, a loosening up of the kind of fear of aging, and seeing that it's not decline, but it really is revelation. That there are things that open up in the interior world that were closed when I was moving the ball down the field and grinding it out. So, that's my soul. That's my soul talk. That's my soul getting to breathe. I wouldn't say that's everybody's story, But for this assertive style, it certainly was a big part of my new work in the second half of life, was to go deep instead of far.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that when you talk about going inside, because I do think that the first half of life, I mean, it does what it's supposed to do. You know, you're building identity and career and beliefs and roles and all of that kind of thing. And, you know, when I was taught the Enneagram, it was not taught about an identification where your identify with your type. It's a disidentification. It's who you're not. And, you know, it works for us in the first half of life as it should. And then something happens and it cracks your world open. And that's what I see as a threshold. And so for me, it was almost like I would feel like if the promise was the best is yet to come, it's out there. I'm waiting for it. And I still might be running for it, particularly as an assert type. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. And so what for me, what it's been, and working with people, particularly in these groups, or I do a lot with shadow work, is like, how can we hold both the ache of the losses? Because for me, Tyler, one of my good friends died while he was your age. He was playing racquetball. He had 5 kids. He was the one in the best shape of all of us. And he was playing racquetball and he died. And I had just spent the weekend with Father Thomas Keating and Ken Wilber from Integral Life. And I was in almost an altered state when I got home, of just like depth and spiritual depth and gratitude. And this happened. And it was so just so jarring. And all you could do is just, is open. And it kind of it was a trajectory loss. Like I could tell you again and again of losses that can hope mature beyond optimism, you know. And so can we live when it's really hard? And it's not always about believing things will get better. For as a 7, you're looking for that sunset, you know. It's about what Clare was saying, is about deepening, discovering that meaning and love can emerge in the midst of it. It'll break you open. It'll break your heart. It's quieter and it's uncertain. And as a head type, I don't like that. Head types, you get it. We don't like uncertainty. I want the answers.
Mhm.
And I love how you talked about cynicism. Cynicism softens, but not by denying the pain or me fleeing. For me, it was going cognitive. I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to understand. I wanted to read books about grief. But it was really about being able to sit in it and be in it that shaped me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks, you guys. Beautiful start to the Q&A. Loved your answers. We have a comment from John here. He says, "Can you give any guidance about tragic optimism, especially in these turbulent times of uncertainty in our country?"
Oh my Lord, can I go? Can I go on
Yeah,
that one?
yeah, Clare.
You know, I'm wondering, John, if you were in my session today when I was talking about tragic optimism and that beautiful phrase that Viktor Frankl used in, you know, when he was in a Nazi prison camp and in that, in solitary confinement, and he looked out and he saw the sun just sprinkling on shards of glass. And he found meaning therapy, right? He began to help people with meaning, and he didn't call it, you know. So there are people. I actually tease my husband all the time as leading with Style 9 that he's a or that he's a toxic optimist, right? And I say, so toxic optimism does not appeal to me, but tragic optimism does indeed, because it does not dismiss the painful parts of life, but it's able to find meaning in it. What is the meaning in it? And so, John, when our son died and my dad did the funeral, and he said, you could pound the table and say, what is the meaning of this? He said, or you could ask, what is the meaning in this? Not what's the meaning of it, what is the meaning in it? And in it, there is great meaning. You know, and he began to talk about the love that was shared from friends and family through our son's, birth defects and his death. And he talked about, look at the love you've shared together. And so I want to say, I think tragic optimism is here for the taking. That when we're looking at the pain in the world, we can pound the table and we can begin to think that hate is what we need. But no, hate is not what we need. What we need is the ability to find meaning and shared meaning so that we can take steps together out of the slough of despond or out of solitary confinement. That there are ways for us, if we stay in community with people who are willing to not be toxic optimists, it's all going to work out, it's going to be fine, whatever. But that we together can say, what is the meaning here? And how can we find meaning together and rediscover hope?
Yep. John says, yes, Claire, I thought your session today and Leslie's were so helpful. Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Leslie,
John.
Leslie, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I don't have a lot to add. I think that's beautifully expressed. I think the one thing I would add is that to make space, for me, it's been a lot around making space for when I couldn't find my bearings and I couldn't find ground. And when you think about, I did a 35-page paper in grad school on the dark night of the soul and the dark night of the sense. And part of the dark night is it's dark and you can't find your way. And you have people there, but sometimes I know in moments of grief, because I've had a lot of loss, sometimes people couldn't reach me, I couldn't reach them, and they were there. But I had to, in some sense, walk through some of it in the dark. It really was spiritual surrender, because every time I tried to cling and tried to figure it out and tried to get something that I was trying to, that one of my spiritual books had told me, it was me almost trying to imagine it, to think it. So there were moments I just would have to be like, just let go. And then by not controlling, something new could emerge out of that by letting go. It just gives it some spaciousness, and to allow the messiness, and nothing's wrong with you if it's messy. Nothing's wrong with you.
Thanks, Leslie. Well, we have a lot of people here, and sometimes we feel like we're alone in these navigating these hard transitions, these thresholds. And so I want to put this comment from Beth up, and I want you to just want to ask you, what would you say to Beth right now? She said, I am probably considered past midlife, just turned 60 last week. I had a season of full-time ministry, a season of full-time motherhood, and a season of full of caring for parents. Now I am a lost type 2. What would you say to Beth? Do you think she's past midlife at 60 or not? I would love to hear your answer.
Yeah.
Leslie.
Yeah. Yes, Beth. And it's like to be with that at 60, it's a big one, and this is when I do the threshold groups, one of the things we do is to accept our aging and to accept the limitations that come with aging. And what is so strange, that's so counterintuitive, is the more I accept and open, right, is the more spaciousness there is for something else to emerge. But if I'm looking back, and that doesn't mean, Beth, that you don't grieve your parents and you don't grieve that your children are gone, which is significant for you as a 2. I mean, that's so big. So much of your life has been pouring out. And that inner terrain for you is going to be more of a challenge as a 2. And that's not a bad thing. And so it is an opportunity. And I say this with the greatest of reverence for the loss of your parents and that your children growing up. That there is a time particularly for people with your type structure, to go inside and find someone who can help you navigate that terrain, maybe who's walked through it before.
Beautiful, Leslie. As a former pastor, and you got Claire as pastor, you are pastoring us well already. Like this, it's so good to be loved on, and so I'm sure Beth really appreciated that, Leslie.
Mhm.
I
Claire, do you
just
have
use the
anything?
twos. I have a lot of twos in my contemplative practice groups. I've had a
Mm,
lot of twos in my thresholds group. I think it's particularly rough for this type structure. I do,
yeah.
and in a particular way.
Yeah, and maybe I would just add to for Beth, whether you lead with style 2, 7, 3, all of us. In midlife, the container that we built, our roles, our beliefs, our certainties, they do start to crack, right? And it's not a failure, it's an invitation for each of us that whatever that container was that we built for you at leading with style 2, taking care of others. That's what you did, right? That's how you offered yourself. Um, Father Rollheiser talks about pure pulse in the 20s and the 30s, and it's so beautiful. We build our life, we build our roles, we build our certainties, and then when they start to crack, and we ask questions, vulnerable questions like this, Beth. I love that Leslie's offering thresholds workshops for this very purpose. And I would also say spiritual direction for me was huge. And it was a time when I came with all my cracks. I mean, I always had cracks, but you're not always aware of your cracks. But the cracks I was so aware of my cracks in the container that I went to a spiritual director, and she said to me, Claire, where are you holding this in your body right now? And I was like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. Where are you holding? What are you asking me?
Body?
What? And so by the time we were done, I had my hand here, and I was able to really practice radical hospitality with the breaking of my heart in some of these breaking opens, right? And so even the idea of going through moments like this with someone who's, a spiritual friend, a helping professional, whatever it is, we're made for community in these moments, and for people to help us welcome all that feels like it's crumbling or cracked. And so I just offer you my thoughts and all of us to say, wherever we're cracking, don't crack alone. Crack in community.
That's beautiful, Claire. I love that. Don't crack alone. That's great. Well, we have a question from Joanne, who's a type 4. She said, I am a type 4 in my 40s and have not experienced many of the things that most people have by my stage in life. How can I let go of the grief I have about only having only lived half a life?
Yeah, Joanne, as you ask that question, you might want to notice the attention for fours. Attention goes to what's missing, and attention goes to they seem to have gotten the playbook, or they seem to have gotten it, and I didn't get it, right? And so there's kind of a noticing of what's missing. And so holding that next to, right in this point, is asking yourself right now, what do I see in others, right? Like, what am I noticing in them right now? And comparing myself to that in some way, because the heart center tends to do this comparison piece. All right. And notice, just see the energy, almost like what Claire said. When you ask that question, notice what happens inside. Like, it's a comparison. Okay. It's that there's a journey, and it looks like this, and there's this stone and this stone and this grief and this loss, and it looks like this. And I don't think I got it. So just notice that. Because for you, it's that I love that David White, probably another 4, is he says to start close in. Don't
Yes.
take Don't take the second step, the third step. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Is to start close in. Take the first step, the step you don't want to take. So just noticing right now, what is a step that's right in front of me that I don't know that I want to take? And that's because just the very question itself is like so rich that if probably Claire's sitting here and I'm sitting here working in spiritual guidance is to really work with the energy of that question.
Hmm.
That's kind of what I'm hearing.
It's a great answer, Leslie. And it goes to show how helpful knowing your Enneagram type is when it comes
Mhm.
to midlife,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
recognizing right away that that's the four tendency to look backwards instead of forwards and to be grieving the past. Whereas on the 7 panel I talked to, I said, "Hey, does anybody have any regrets?" And one of the sevens said, "No, I have no regrets." So it's very, very helpful to know your Enneagram type.
and
But
this
thank
is
you,
where
Leslie.
Claire's harmony triad comes in because
Okay, watch out.
Come
my
on.
direction before is I've met my regrets. I have met my regrets,
Yes.
and those regrets are really rich, and so I
Yeah.
do understand regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
Wow.
too, for our friend here to consider harmony as well. So,
Mhm.
I love a little mantra for the 471, and it's gravity, levity, and stability.
Yeah.
Gravity, levity, and stability. That there's a way to be in the gravity of these things, to honor that, right? And I'm not saying you have to go right to levity, but there is a way with the kind of equanimity that we need as any leading with any style for. The 1 and the 7 give us in stability and levity, because you are more than your style. You have a head, a heart,
Yeah.
the noive. You've got all three centers.
Mhm.
And this gift of being able to say, I am more than just my 4. The 4 is beautiful in me. And the ability to be in equanimity because of the levity of the 7 and the stability of the 1, to begin to access some of the maybe spiritual practices that might open that space for you that are already here for you. As Helen Palmer said in the journal back in the day, that actually, this great macrocosm is also the microcosm of our soul. That
Mhm.
this 471 is here for you. You are more than just your deep heart. You have brilliance, and you have the ability to ground yourself. So I just encourage you to get to know a little bit of the harmony work, as a way to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, we're the idealization triad, we
Yeah.
see an ideal and the ideal's not met. And it's sometimes David Daniels would call us the frustration triad,
Yeah.
right, in the harmony of Enneagram of
Mhm.
is that ideal's not been met. And for me, it's this kind of cognitive ideal, the great plan, trying to find the great plan and meaning of it, you
Mm.
know, and for
Mm.
sort of just noticing that too.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Claire, I want to double click on that because your harmony model is really helpful for midlife wisdom. And so you said the 4 can get levity, and then what was the other word? Just so that we can understand
Stability.
the.
Stability from the 1. That kind of grounded stability. And so, there's something about, even, Dr. Daniels calling the frustration triad. And I would say, we're all equal opportunity frustrated people.
Mhm.
And we could choose the graces of each of these 3, or we could choose the frustration of each of these 3 styles, right? So, in honor to the person who taught me harmony, Dr. David Daniels, in its very primitive form in the beginning, I just want to say that, we're equal opportunity anger people, equal opportunity shame people, we're equal opportunity fear filled people. Like any one of us could pick any one of you know the places, the shadows, the vices, that whatever words we want to use. But we see the great grace, in my tradition we would say the imago Dei. We see the inherent greatness of every style. And when I realize I'm connected to 3 different energies that can help, You know, when I want to go down and in, I've got the 7 that can lift me up and out, or I've got the 1 that can ground me and bring me down to this kind of
Right.
presence. So yeah.
Yeah, and noticing those as an energetic rather than a idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can almost somatically just kind of feel what that feels like. I one time asked a 1 to kind of go like this, and she broke into tears because there's this kind of expansiveness. So just feeling that in the body, and you could do something like, what does grounded presence feel like to me? Where I sit and I can feel, what does that feel like in my body? All right. And for the 4, it could be something like this, what do I feel like when I can hold that depth? So it's energetic and it's felt, and it sort of registers itself in the language of gesture, right? And the energetic language of your type. It moves it from the cognitive understanding of it to actually working with it somatically. Just play with that, Joanne, and see what that feels like.
Wonderful. I'm loving sitting here listening to your wisdom, guys. And we have over 100 people who are here with us. We have Deborah from Boston. So I just want to give a shout out to people who are watching and joining us, just so it's more of a two-way conversation here. We have, we have Andy, who was on our Type 7 panel this week from Ohio.
Andy
We have
from Ohio. Hey.
Yeah, we have Cheryl from Georgia tuning in. We have somebody from Great Britain coming in. And I think it's like 5 hours. It's probably like 1 or 2 a.m. there.
Thank you, Great Britain.
And it's great. All right, so let's move to another question. Katrina says, we have been married for 31 years, but do you have any tips for better marital harmony, especially showing empathy for an 8-wing 7 husband with a 1-wing 2 wife in our mid-50s? So 8-wing 7 husband, 1-wing 2 wife in our mid-50s. That 8 and 1 combination in midlife. Any thoughts or wisdom?
So was it with 8 and 1 or 8 and 2?
8 and 1.
8 and 1.
8-wing 7 and 1-wing 2 is what Katrina said.
There's a lot of body energy in there.
Yeah,
So,
I'll throw the question up again.
1 wing. Okay. So an 8 and a 1. Yeah. So Katrina, it's kind of like, I don't know how it is for you, for Claire. Like, I have all sorts of questions, of course.
I was going to say, this is what I would say. Can you tell me more about that?
Right. Can we unpack that a little bit more? I would say I teach the centers approach, Katrina. And from the perspective of the centers approach, you're both body types. All right. And the orientation is towards control, trying to have some sort of control. And in the second half of life, everything you want to control gets challenged. So there's an energetic in that. So a 1, you might just notice kind of your containment energetically, where you kind of can pull in, and there's more resentments are going to build up because you've been around a lot longer, right? So resentment is the way one can express their anger. And so what starts to happen too is there can be a digging in, right? So there's a lot of energy in digging in for the 8 and the 1. And I've worked with body type couples before, and there's a stubbornness in it, right? And it really, I would say, from my perspective, I call it the feeling triad, meaning strong somatic feelings, not emotional feelings, but strong somatic feelings. And the non-negotiable when I work with a 1 and an 8 is self-compassion. Like, it's non-negotiable. And just noticing, and I don't mean Oprah, like, let's be compassionate, be kind. No, it's deep. It is just really being with yourself and noticing for you and with you, how do you show kindness to yourself? Have you forgiven yourself? What is it like? And for you, when you feel that that kind of tendency to, just feel a critique, there's a lot of energy in that inner critic. And honestly, I'm sure, Claire, you've worked with enough ones too to know that this self-compassion is just, it's non-negotiable. It's, I think, in the second half of life, particularly because there's so much you can't control. What are your thoughts, Claire? How do you see that?
Well, I love that you're naming, both body types and the digging in and how that can show
Yeah.
up as a just, a way for us to notice we need to open to self-compassion.
Mhm.
And again, all 9 styles. Oh Lord, do we need some self-compassion,
Yeah.
right? We cannot, the space between us will never change if the space within us is not reckoned with. So I think even, in midlife and beyond, relationships really there's a reckoning that happens. So even your naming forgiveness is such, is so important. Naming self-compassion. And it can be painful, but I just want to say it's also very sacred because, in midlife, when we start to see one another without projections, right?
Yeah.
When we start to let go of some of those things and we start to see each other, we might want to say, okay, how might I open to more than my in the body need to be in charge? My in the body need to stand my ground, whatever that is. And so when we start to say, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again, but when we work on harmony, with an 8 and a 2 and a 5, you've got this beautiful, large and in charge person that can go to contemplation and just step back and observe. And rather than enacting with force, I'm going to observe for a bit and see what love calls for here. What does love call for here within and between us? Because you are not just a body type. You may lead with that body style, but what we know is if you create a new little happy set of neurons that fire together, they can wire together. And you aren't just going to be a body, but you'll have access, more easy access with practice to that headspace of the 5 to contemplate, to wonder, to be curious, to observe, and then to go to this wonderful way of what does love look like here. So, and then with the, we've already talked about the 147, but there is this beautiful gift in the second half of life that we are more than our type. We are, even though I love what you say, Leslie, when you came into the Enneagram world, it's you're not a type, right? But at the same time, there were so many teachers that were helping us understand our type that we may have had type hangovers. I mean, we got drunk on type information. We were so all up in our type that we forgot that there was so much more accessible here. And certainly in the second half, we realize it's less about romance and it's more about reverence. It's more about revering the image of God in the other person and saying, how can we enact all 3 centers of intelligence in a way that creates a safe place between us? Because if all 3 centers are enacted, then we will feel safe in the head, we will feel held in the body, and we will feel connected in the heart. There will be psychological safety here. And sometimes that can't exist if there are abusive relationships. We're not out, which is why I love what Leslie and I are saying. We'd actually ask, can we unpack this just a little bit more, if we were in one-on-one? Because there's not always an ability to create a psychologically safe, a reverent relationship. Sometimes the most reverent thing you can do is move out of a relationship in order to practice self-compassion and even compassion for the other person. And now I'm rambling and I'll get on a
Well,
soapbox.
I wanted to say something else that what you said just kind of stoked something in me, is that when I think of the 3 centers, for the body center, you have this strong somatic feeling in the body. And so there's kind of this instinctive way you defend, right? The secondary center for y'all is the heart. And I enter it a little differently for 8s and 2s when we're working together. But what I found is that both of these types, when in the contraction of the type, tend to get into a obsessive loop spiral. Like 8, 9, and 1 can do that in 3 different ways. But it's the perceiving filter gets kind of locked. The head gets locked, right, into my perspective, or into the way it should be for you as a 1, for him trying to manage and control as an 8. And so really working with presence and softening, giving spaciousness in the body. And what I found is when we can soften in this work, the clarity of the mind starts to open on itself. It's not a cognitive exercise. You start to just, I remember working with eights who'd been sent to me by their boss. And I'd first say, tell me about your perspective. And then, they could tell it. Okay, now let's come home. Let's do a little softening. Like, what is this lady talking about? It's really bringing them into a vulnerability. And depending on their degree of openness, we do that. And when we could do that, they could start seeing the other person's point of view. And if I had led with that, we'd have been dead in the water. We'd have been dead in the water, because the eight's going to dig in. Who is this lady? Okay, I'll put in my time. My boss made me come see her. I'll put in my time. I have to really see the body type, because you tend to be a self-forgetting triad, and make space for what's going on for you. And in that spaciousness, something else gets to emerge.
But yeah, so I just want to say yes, yes, yes. And if we begin with inherent greatness and honoring the space someone comes from and celebrate that, and this then creates a spaciousness in order to welcome other parts of themselves. Which is why I never begin with vice or shadow or fixation. Like if people have heard enough of that all their life, even if they didn't know those words, they've been told those things. But when we can see the imago Dei in another person and help them remember themselves, then the other spaces open, other practices open. So I hear that, Leslie.
Well, I have to tell you something, Claire, when you said that. So Helen Palmer was my teacher, and Helen was the co-founder of the narrative tradition with David Daniels. They were both sixes. All right. And Helen says this one time, and I was in an intentional learning community with her for about 20 years. We met a couple times a year for spiritual practice. And I remember her saying one time, yeah, I liked the vice at the beginning. If you didn't name the vice, I wouldn't have trusted it. So give me the worst case. Give me the down low here. Because if you're coming to me like you do, Leslie, yeah, I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was so. This whole thing is we see from where we stand, and it's such a different orientation for each one of the types. But yeah, because so many people would say, God, other people would be like, man, that Helen Palmer book, it's kind of negative. It's because she just goes for the jugular. She goes right for the vice. So it's sometimes for each of us. But I thought of that when you said that. I thought, oh gosh, I could just hear Helen saying something to me.
Well, we could say it together. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's good right there. Well, I just want to say thank you to those who are coming in still. We're still getting an influx of people. And we have Bill from, from
Bill.
Chicago. Bill Reed.
Bill.
Yeah. He was on the panel, the type 2 panel. So it's good to have you here, Bill. But I'm going to jump in here and ask one of my own questions. And that is, many of us were taught that by midlife, we'd have it all figured out. But instead, we feel more confused or uncertain than ever. I think, as a kid, I thought my parents knew everything, or they knew everything. And then you get to, now I'm at my parents' age, in my 40s, and I don't feel like I still feel young and I don't feel like I have it figured out. And so how do we make peace, when we get to 40, when we get to 50, when we get to 60, when we get to 70, how do we make peace with not having all the answers at whatever stage of life we're in?
I love this question so much. Because I was raised by a dad who, he would just say, oh, is that right? Or he'd say, oh, that might be true. Or that's an interesting perspective. And of course, when I was 18 and 19 and 20, and I left my Catholic charismatic days and my father, who was a Jesuit, to go be a Protestant, I was going to tell him everything about what was certain in life, because he was so unclear in all, he was so unclear. And so, I think there's an illusion that maturity equals certainty. And, what really we realize that we want to kind of end up in the cloud of unknowing if we're to be those who are able to hold people of different perspectives. And so I think one of the great gifts of having a crash and burn and hitting 40 was realizing how smart my dad was before he died. So I could tell him so and say, one of my favorite breath prayers right now is, I don't know. And so I think the invitation to let certitude go and to enter into the capital M mystery of it all and say, I'm still learning, our roles and our beliefs and, when they start to leave certainty and you start to see there's a wider world with many perspectives and you start to say, okay, I want to begin to trust. In my tradition, we would say the Creator's presence or God's presence more than understanding. And so I think the fun of going into the mystery is what Father Rohr says. Mystery is not you're never gonna figure it out. You're going to endlessly understand.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get to the end of it. You're going to get to endlessly understand. And I find that to be such a great breathing space that I don't necessarily have to know, but I can keep opening to mystery and keep opening to understanding you and understanding me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like confusion isn't a failure. It's often this space where, truer wisdom begins to form, making peace with not knowing.
Mm.
And that it just is a head type. I've got to tell you, what really hit me, Tyler, is that this is like so revealing of my type, is that it's like, okay, so I lost my brother and my brother's wife and baby died when I was 20. And so when I was 40, and lost one of my best friends, it was like, it was like a frozen grief that kind of thawed when I was 40. It was like a tsunami of grief that was pretty scary. It hit so hard. And so really walked through that, then went and got certified in the Enneagram with Helen and David, and then got my master's in theology. So I felt like Helen and David were deconstructing my insides. The theology program was deconstructing my religious worldview. Grief was just like, it had me kind of really unmoored. And I remember my husband just really saying to me this, he said, you need to get help. And that's when I went into therapy and spiritual direction, because he was scared because I was so sad, and I was 7, and it was all so much. So got into therapy, got into spiritual direction, and what was really interesting, and this is where my type's going to reveal itself. It was like I turned 50. It's like, okay, I did that. I did it. Okay, yeah, good. Check that box. Well, they kept coming. Loss kept coming. Things kept coming. You don't need to hear every detail of the story, but it's like so many, just life happened. And in the middle of all of that, y'all, I mean, my daughter gave birth to my grandson in El Salvador. And that like broke me open like you can't even believe. In the middle of all of this amazing birth, my son-in-law came into my life. My son married somebody I just love, had there's so many, so much beauty within that. So just that messiness, that I've learned to not make little things like deals with God of, okay, I've been through that one. All right. That dark night. And to be it's been a real humbling that I don't always have it figured out. And I don't know, have you ever heard the book Bittersweet by Susan Cain?
Mm.
She said, and this was, for me as a 7, she says, if we could honor sadness a little more and maybe see it rather than either enforced smiles or righteous outrage, that sadness is the bridge we need to connect to each other. And we could remember that no matter how distasteful we might find someone's opinions or how radiant or fierce or someone may appear, they have suffered. They may have suffered, or they will. And that right there, there's little baby sufferings, and I don't think we're given a lot of template for that in this culture, Tyler. It's a very three-ish culture. And so it's like there seems to be this energy that I carried as well, that, okay, I did that and did that. And I wasn't given really a template for kind of a messy map, you know. And as a head type, I like a little clearer map than the one I was given, right? Yeah.
One of the things that comes to mind, Leslie, as you're talking, is one of the themes that kind of continue to come up again and again on the summit this week is that aging and getting older is a gift, because it will expose your ego
Yes.
quicker. And like you said, as a 7, all of our type structures or our ego are like a house of cards, and aging, just living a little bit longer, will actually cause that to crumble. And it can be a gift if you receive it as, okay, I need to do something different now. This old pattern is not going to serve me in the second half of life, and so I need to take the fork in the road and go in a different direction. And
Yeah.
I love sitting here with you two right now, and all of us do, all 100 of us that are here in this, in our own living rooms with our coffee or tea. And I love just being around you in your presence, because you've taken the path in life that where you're like, I want to grow and I want to mature and I want to see, don't just want to be productive, but I want to be fruitful, like Alice Freiling says, to move from productivity to fruitfulness. And and so to hear a 7 like you, Leslie, talk so soberly about life, but with still optimism, but with this sense of groundedness and soberness, is really refreshing to be around you, and to be around Clare, who's a 3, like me. And you're not just performing or putting on a mask, Clare, but you're talking about really raw things right now. And it's just refreshing to be around. So I just wanted to point that out.
Well, I think we're creating, and then going back to what Claire said, it is shared. It's interesting because I think of it a lot of times, just kind of like I think about my husband and me, that we're both very independent people. So it's like we're independent, and then we come together, and then come apart, we come together. And I think of a lot of times my spiritual practice or myself, there are times I'm alone. And that was one of the things my sister said when she was dying, and she said, she called me sister. She said, "Sister, the weirdest thing is I'm leaving and you're all staying. Like you're all staying. I'm going alone." And it was it really hit me. And the older I get, I think about that. So in our company with divine presence, with God's presence, to be able to be in that intimacy with ourselves, with the Holy One, right? To be able to do that. And my sister did cultivate a spiritual practice. And then also being in community. It's kind of like coming in here and then going out, and coming in here and then going out. I found, because I'm so freaking extroverted, I just need some time alone, and yeah. And it's funny, like in second half of life, I also want to say this to y'all. I'm becoming more introverted, and my 9 introvert husband's becoming more extroverted. Like it's really interesting. Like he's got a book club, and he's off on the RV with a group of guys. And then he did, it just cracks me up how he's always wanting to go do stuff. I'm like, I don't want to do stuff all the time, Dave. I don't want to travel all the time. So it's really funny. It's like we're shifting roles here. Like at the family band this summer, I was in the audience, and the whole family was playing, and I was in the audience cheering. Everybody's mustering through on their guitar, and the kids are playing drums, and I was in the audience, and I usually wasn't in the audience. Yes, my family.
That's really fun to hear, Leslie, about switching. Extrovert becomes introvert becomes extrovert. We've talked about moving to and pulling from the resources from a different wing. We've in the second half of life, we've heard that before. That's really fun. One question that I wanted to ask here is about unexpected blessings or invitations? Again, going back to Alice Freiling, she wrote a book, Aging Faithfully, Holy Losses and Holy Invitations. So aging and getting into the second half of life, or the third quarter of life, there's losses in each stage, and then there's invitations in each stage. And I think when you're in midlife, you think that there's just all going to be losses, because there's a lot. But I just want to ask you guys right now, like, what unexpected blessings or what new invitations emerged as you've gone through midlife?
Claire, I'll let you start this one.
Yeah, well, I when I was at midlife, because I'm not anymore, I'm in the third act. Not in the bonus years yet, but I am in the third act. I think for me at midlife, the gift of multiple sclerosis, which I said today in my session, really the invitation to have rhythms of community and solitude, of silence and words. As I went into the Loretto Center there in Wheaton, Illinois, and was on retreat, freshly diagnosed, a young 40-year-old pastor, 10 years into our church plant, everything up and to the right kind of thing. And then to discover that I may have been wounding my body. I may have been wounding my life by my drivenness. I used to quote Thomas Edison, "Too much sleep makes a man dopey," and so I didn't sleep. I was very proud of that. Oh yeah, I went to bed at 2, I got up at 5. Doesn't everybody? And so this invitation to that rest and activity, contemplation and action, the whole thing, that there was this invitation to a more full life than just being full on. And so I didn't really realize that rest was a spiritual discipline. I thought that was for lazy people. I had no idea that it would actually, Scott loves to say, my Ennea 9 style husband loves to say, I became more productive after 40 because I learned how to sit down and take a breath, and it's true, because the creativity became so a different texture, a different color, that's really interesting. And then the idea of just being in nature. I never went outside. It was there. I might have looked at it from the, but to go to receive the gift of midlife, and not everybody has to have a diagnosis. But what happens at midlife, you are apprenticing yourself to death, as David White would say. And in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, if you're paying attention, you're aware you're apprenticing yourself to death. And so what does that mean? Well, it means you might want to die to some things that are no longer the things that are most important. And then all of a sudden you start, like, things blossom. So I guess I'll say this too. And my dad, in his 80s, he had macular degeneration. He could barely hear. He had gone through this, that, and the other thing. He's sitting on his lazy boy. My dad was, he was the person who taught me to love to read. And when I asked him, "Are you depressed, Dad, that you can't read anymore?" And he just said, "No, because I can sit here and listen to you and to my grandchildren." And he really did see it as a great exchange from one gift to the other. And so I just want to say, for me, I feel grateful that some things happened at 40 that I didn't have to wait till later to say, okay, there are a lot of things I valued, but there are some things that are priceless to me. And those are going to be the things that I give myself to, and I give to other people. Did I answer your question, Tyler, or did I get on a roll again?
No, I love it. No, you did. Just love listening. Leslie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah.
Anything?
Oh gosh. because I've lost a lot of friends, my friends are so important to me. I love my friends, and I am so grateful for my friends. And so really cultivating my friendships, and I'm super intentional. And I've just had a lot of friends with a lot of diagnoses, and it just opens up. I just love them. I love what Claire said, reading. I've always loved to read, but I would say just in a deeper level too, of just like, gosh, y'all, I have to tell you this. My sister, um, I when I went through all the stuff, she was a 6, and her journey was to kind of open and trust pleasure, and I was like, oh, isn't that just great for you? You get to trust pleasure, and I'm having to move into pain, and and so, but I sometimes felt like I would set a high standard for people and expectations, that kind of, well, I'm a good friend, or I'm a good sister, or and I would set this bar, and that is a regret. And now it's really lowering. It's not like lowering expectations. It's not, I don't know how to say it with words, but it's accepting what people can offer, that every person is different. My husband's different from my sister's, different from my friendships, different from each one of my children. And to accept who they are, that has been one of my greatest gifts, because
That's a biggie.
yeah, I just accept things more. It's like, I don't want to waste time. I don't want to waste time holding myself and others to just such impossible standards. It's a
Mhm.
little harder with myself, but oh my God, I just feel so grateful. My younger sister and I, since my older sister died, we've gotten closer. She's a 2, and we worked through some stuff, and I'm so proud of us. And it's because of this, of accepting each other.
Mhm.
I would say the other gift is grandchildren. It's like a chance to do a do-over and to watch my kids grandparent or parent. My kids are such good parents. I just am like, damn. I mean, I'm learning from them. They're just good at it. And when Alejandro has homework, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to carry this whole thing. I did it, right? I get to just enjoy him, and oh, I have so much fun with them. So it's the pleasure, like the grandchild. It's like this way to, just be able to enjoy them. I just love it. So I feel so burdened by responsibility. Tyler, I know you're young. It would be very so responsible when you're the parent. When you're a grandparent, there's a lot more play. And
You could be irresponsible.
I just love, it's like my father, at one time, my very strict father said, I asked him advice or something about my daughter. And I said, Laura, blah, blah, blah. He said, I think you should let Laura do whatever she wants.
Mhm.
And he
Mhm.
was just as a grandfather. I said, yeah, Dad, that's the kind of dad you were. Right. But yeah, it's just a pleasure. Yeah.
Well, Leslie, it's just so refreshing to be around a 7 who isn't dodging pain, but is you're talking about pleasure and pain together and going through it, and then you've been through multiple losses. You said multiple diagnoses from different friends, and you've gone through it rather than around it, and it's matured you, and you've bore a lot of fruit on the tree of joy, love, peace, patience, all these things. And so it's just refreshing to
With
be
the
around
help, what Claire says, y'all, with the help of a learning community, with the help of my
yeah.
friends, I have my husband, um, just, yeah, just it's with the help of some really good people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to end with this question. And no matter what age we are, this is a great question. Okay. Because sometimes, a lot of times when you get into midlife, no matter where you're at, you think, or the last quarter, think, well, it's too late for me. I had
Mhm.
these dreams, but now it's too late. And so,
Mm.
um, KSK asks, says, thanks for this wonderful session. Any suggestions on how to find courage in midlife to start something new when there seems to be just dead ends all around for head types, like not just overthinking? So what would
Oh,
you say about
question.
courage and taking risks and reinventing yourself. And, what would you say to, what have you experienced personally? And then what would you say, to us about that?
God, I feel so for head tapes. I feel so for you.
Well, I love that it is a head type that's using the courage word, because the Latin word cor is heart, courage. It is about heart, right? And so maybe coming to, be reverent to this brilliant mind you have and say, thank you, thank you, thank you, and drop right down into your heart and begin to wonder what is beating in here and what is the desire. What is it? What is percolating in here that has you wanting and longing? And begin to connect that, not just with thoughts, but with people, with emotions, right? Because courage is not just I'm going to go conquer, right? It is this entering into this beautiful sanctuary of the heart and asking, what is it that I want? And then, in my tradition, I love that Jesus would always ask the question, what do you want? What do you seek? This wonderful question, which gives us the ability to say, okay, so I might start out with what I want, and it might all be the surface stuff, but if I start to name it, it might then drop down to the rock bottom of my soul. And I can really name what the deepest desire is that I have. But I might not get there if I'm not allowed to name all of these desires first. And then I can get here and I can feel that. And then I can be able to offer that in my prayer or in a place where someone sees me, knows me, wants the best for me, and will help me unpack that. Because it sounds like it's not just your brain that's coming alive. It sounds like your heart wants to come alive. It sounds like your heart wants to name some things that you want in this time of life. And you are deserving of getting to name what your heart wants. So
I was wondering, I saw KSK. I don't know if, but what so I'll say KSK. But David Daniels, who's a head type of 6, used to say, fake it till you make it. So it's just kind of back to the David White poem. We head types thinking replaces doing. And thinking feels so alive and so real. Like, I know what that's like. Like, I thought it so much, right? That just kind of moving into action. I see us as our our buried center is the heart. And also that heart, just like that 3 space does go into doing. And my sister was a head type, and I read a David White poem at her. My sister-in-law read a David White poem at her funeral. And it was a poem where he said that courage is a word that that we think outwardly. We run bravely against opposing fire. It feels like really big to do something under besieging circumstances, and above all, to be seen to be doing it in public, right? To get the accolades. But as Claire said, its linguistic origins are cœur, the heart. And he said that courage is a measure of our heartfelt participation with life, with one another, with a community. And to be courageous sometimes isn't necessarily to go anywhere, to do anything, but to make conscious the things that we already feel deeply and then live into the vulnerabilities of that. And sometimes taking a step for us as a head type can be kind of vulnerable. So it's feeling the feelings deeply in the body, to live into those necessities. And he closed this poem with, whether we stay or whether we go, to be courageous is to stay closely to the way we are made, like what Claire said, right? And really starting just with one small thing, just taking that action, that's what I have found helpful. And then to be really kind to myself when I have a day up in my head too. Because they still happen. Ask my husband.
That's so good, Leslie. I love that picture of it. It's going to take vulnerability to exercise courage.
Yeah,
To be able to sit
right,
and allow those dreams and those passions, the things you want to say, and And I talked about this with Katie in the menopause session about how menopause can be a refining fire, where women are able to become prophets, are able to speak the things that they need to say,
Yes.
and to have a voice and to stand up for themselves and to speak their truth, and just the vulnerability it takes to sit, to bring into consciousness those dreams and those words, and then to go and act on them. But it's a first step of vulnerability. That's really good. I like that.
Yeah. 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 Just
Well,
to do this work is vulnerable. To sit
yeah,
here, it just is vulnerable. Stepping
yeah,
in, assuming we have something we could, that's vulnerable. And I worked with somebody today who's starting a business, and it's vulnerable. And so it's just starting with, that one step at a time. And it really, it is so true of the Nike Just Do It. I tell you what, for head types, that's a big one, because we really get stuck in the imagination of it. And
Well,
when you're 6, you can scare yourself to death, right? Like, as Helen used to say, in the middle of the night, we can scare ourselves to death. And
yeah,
so
well, I love that, the just do it, because the 3s have to let that go.
yeah,
And
yeah,
one of the things that I love, my spiritual director said to me, don't just do something, Claire, sit there.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
just do something, sit there.
yeah.
And it's amazing what happens in the sit.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's a whole nother session.
That's a whole
But
nother session. Yeah.
giving ourselves the ability to sit,
Yeah.
and when we can, then things emerge that come from the truest place in us, and not what we're clinging and grasping and trying to make happen to just do it, but to enter into the sit, to find out what is here, what is already here, in my fully human and divine nature.
That's what I find with the Enneagram can be so helpful this time of life, because it's different for each one of these.
Mhm.
We contract in 9 different ways, and
Yes.
in 9 different ways. Yeah.
that's why it's a privilege to do this Enneagram work with you. And there's a lot of books out there about midlife and just wisdom on what to do, but that having uh, 9 patterns of to apply wisdom to can really help bring things into the high definition. So for
Mhm.
9s, yeah, it might be midlife, might be just do it, the slogan. But for 3s, looking at 9s, it's just be. It should be our slogan for
Yeah,
midlife. So
exactly.
that's so helpful. You guys are illustrating the beauty of that wisdom so well, and I just have loved spending time with you. And so I want to, now that we've been over an hour here, I'm going to wrap up with pointing people in your direction. So if you're watching and you really enjoyed this time and found it really encouraging and nurturing, just know that Leslie and Claire are very active in leading cohorts, leading trainings, just not shrinking back during this season of life, but pouring themselves out, like a lamb to the slaughter, just like going all in, as Lisa Lisa Vischer says. Particularly, she was talking about the sexual sometimes, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but you guys are just going all in here, and I love it. So
Mhm. Mhm.
so let's start with you, Claire. What would you have to offer those watching with the offerings that you're doing and the resources that you have?
Mm. Well, we have our Enneagram training coming up in January. 13th through the 16th is a 4-day immersion. You can have it as a retreat or work for the certification in the Enneagram Motions of the Soul. And so that has written work afterward. And then we also have a 2-year spiritual direction cohort. And so you'll see some of the greats that are part of our faculty, including adjunct faculty like Jerry Wagner and Suzanne Dion and Doug and Adele Calhoun, and just brilliant, soulful third act types. Well, not Suzanne. Don't think she's third act yet. She might be getting close.
Yeah.
And so, and so I just want to say that our desire in times like this is to give people this kind of an experience where you're actually sitting in the presence of someone who has time. And that's what a spiritual director is, someone who has time to listen to your soul. And so training either in the Enneagram with us or in spiritual direction, we all need some places that are just really kind to our souls, that empower us then for our work in the world, because we don't need more. We don't need more ungrounded, unregulated individuals that are trying to lead the way in our world. We need people who are grounded and centered and have accessed that work. So I think you're probably going to put our link in the, in this here. So I won't even try to say scottandclareloughridge.org. But what I want to say is it is our great gift to give that kind of work in the second half and third act. And even training people in their 40s to be able to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
So,
gosh, I think that's when I got started. I was in my late 30s, early 40s. When
yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got the links already in the show notes, Claire, for you. That was wonderful. Leslie, what do you have to offer those watching?
Yeah. So my website's lesliehershberger.com. So everything is there. But one of the big things that we are doing is the inner shift experience. And what that is, it's an integration of the Enneagram, spiritual presence, and IFS. And IFS is internal family systems. And I happened upon it 2 years ago, and they're moving a lot into spiritual presence there. And what we really wanted to do was bring people together. I'm teaching it with Joan Ryan, who was one of my teachers in the narrative tradition. She's definitely in the third act. And so we are going to be, it's here in Cincinnati, Ohio at the Transfiguration Spirituality Center, February 19th to the 22nd. It's really for people who are interested in deeper work and deeper work of presence. It's not going to be all cognitive teaching. And so it's also, if you have some pastors, spiritual directors, therapists, people who have an understanding of the Enneagram. Joan is bringing a lot of people in IFS because she is trained in IFS. She just wrote a chapter in the newest book on IFS of integrating the IFS with different modalities, and she wrote co-wrote the one on the Enneagram. So we're going to be co-teaching, and then I'm really excited because one of my favorite people, Andrea Sharfadini, is coming in. She does a lot with energy work and spiritual work and work with emotions. So she will be there too. That's the inner shift experience. I also have something online for embodied shadow work, and this is a self-paced class because I think the second half of life is a really great opportunity to work with shadow, and it's working with Enneagram and shadow. Like, what is the shadow? But we also are looking at the collective, the shadow of each generation, the shadow of the collective right now, because we all have a shadow, and that shadow has a ton of energy. So we've got that. And then I have on my website Enneagram master classes, because this was my husband like pushing me into doing, and my daughter during the pandemic, to record all of my teaching. And so it's broken down into types. So those are the big things. And then I just partnered with a group called I Awake Technologies. I did a lot with them with integral recovery and the integral work. And I worked with people moving through addiction. And they found meditation and prayer was really important for people in their movement through addiction. So we co-created with sound waves, sound technology, and my voice, where I bring you into maybe a contraction of your type and bring you into that and work with meditation there. So I have that, and that's also on my website. So
Beautiful, beautiful. By the way, Claire, in her laryngitis, her voice is, I feel like, more soothing. So that's been really nice tonight, Claire.
What do you call it? What is that voice, Claire?
It's my nightclub voice.
I love it. Oh, and Leslie, Joan Ryan, I have her booked already for the next EnneaSummit on mental health in February.
Joan's awesome. She's a 9, really clear. And honestly, Joan was a big person in helping me understand my husband. And to this day, she's just, I love
those
her.
9s.
I love her.
Those 9s.
Joan.
Yeah.
She's a clear teacher. She's so good.
I put your website down below, and you're right. It has all links for everything you've shared. So make sure to go to the show notes and check that out. But thank you so much, Clare and Leslie, for creating space to be with us all tonight. You two are gems and sages, and so lovely to be around. So thank you so much for gracing us with your
Thank you.
wisdom
Thank you for
and being
having
our midlife guides tonight. We so appreciate you. So appreciate you.
Who knew you'd ever want to be a midlife guide? Thank you, Tyler. Your
we really
generosity.
appreciate what you've done here. Yeah, I
Yes.
gotta tell you.
Yeah. Tyler, you have taken your gifts as a person inherently great in networking.
Yeah.
And have brought people together that are helping all of us in very different ways. So we thank you.
Yeah, Tyler, I thought about doing this in my head, and you did it.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much. And Clare, I received that. I so really, really appreciate you just speaking life into me. So thank you. And to all those who are still with us watching, just know that you can still watch the other half of the EnneaSummit, day three's sessions, including Clare's interview, which, by the way, again, I want to remind you that she has a 10-minute mortality meditation, right? Who knew they needed a mortality meditation? But I'm telling you, you do. I started to tear up when I was with her. And so make sure to go listen to that, her talk on the third act and the mortality meditation. That's available till noon tomorrow. I went beyond the 24-hour access to 30-hour access because some people are waking up in Australia and need more time. So you can actually watch it until 12 o'clock tomorrow Central Time. And then you can watch day 4 sessions. So there's still a lot to watch. So make sure to go register at the EnneaSummit.com. There's a link below in the show notes, and enjoy that. And if you're watching with us, you're still with us, and you want to hear Leslie's talk that you missed on Monday, if you don't have the All Access Pass, All Access Pass gives you lifetime access to all the sessions and panels. But if you want me to send you Leslie's link to listen to her talk, in case you missed it, just email me and I will give it to you so that you can listen to all of her goodness.
Look at that generosity again.
Well, thank you again for tuning in. Remember that you are not alone, that you still matter. And there's a lot of time left to pursue your dreams and to embrace the truth that your second half will be your best half. All right. Thank you for being with us. And until we see you again.